Welcome to the Rising for Women podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Merlo-Booth, and I believe the world will be changed for women when we change how we walk in it. So each week, we're going to have hard conversations. We're going to explore new options. Some of them are going to be hard options, and we're going to have some real, straight talk. We're going to do that because I have faith that women can handle it. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Rising Podcast for Women. I'm Lisa Merlo-Booth, and with me is Dee Marcotte and Arlene Newman. Welcome to the show, everybody. And the topic we're going to discuss today is women and over-responsibility, particularly during the holidays, but also in general. So, Arlene and Dee, we've been working with women and couples for, decades now, and we all know that women tend to be more responsible in their home. And as a matter of fact, I was actually looking up some of the stats, and women are, even when they're working full time, they are still carrying the greater load at home. And that's like not even during the holiday seasons, just in general. And one stat I found was that 3 out of 10 couples have a more equitable distribution of work in the home. So that leaves 70% of couples where heterosexual couples, where women are more likely to carry on the bigger load. With homosexual couples, the workload was pretty even, whether it was males or females. Homosexual couples had more of an even load. But with heterosexual couples, almost across the board, most people in their homes, the women are picking up a lot of the slack. And in the holiday seasons, that's even more intensified. So are you guys shocked by any of that?
Sadly not.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I hear it all the time, and especially right now, like the women are more and more and more revving up, especially with Thanksgiving and Christmas, and how the holidays are supposed to look. What should it look like during COVID? All this. I'm like, they're like juggling all the balls.
I forgot about COVID. Like, I didn't even think, gosh, that throws a whole nother, dimension on this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So what are you seeing women do?
Everything.
Okay, what's everything? What's everything?
Make all the arrangements. Think about everything. Think about who has to come, who the guests are, what they have to do. Think about gifts. Think about the dinners. Think about if they have kids coming in, when the kids are coming in. And they just have to take care of all the details to make sure that it all comes out in a way that they imagine it should.
So if they're carrying all the details, that must mean that the men are like doing the shopping and cleaning the house and getting it ready for all the
Is
people?
that what happens in the families you know? Not in any of the families I know.
Is that not what's happening?
And not exactly, no.
Yeah.
That's
So
on
not
top
only-
of.
Right. That's on top of.
On top of. Because that's what, from what I see, this is what women do all the time, every day.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Anyway, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of work women are doing. The planning, which is all the mental stuff, trying to get it together, and then they're becoming entertainers. Dee, you had a list of things that women are doing. What was that list?
Yeah, I call them, they're the buyer, the maker, the cooker, the wrapper, and the cleaner.
That's a lot of things.
And the social director was my
And the
addition.
Social director.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so during the holiday season, are they just, one of our questions, what are women doing? So they're doing all of that. Are they like just taking it on themselves? Are they asking for help? Are they just, running with it? What are you guys seeing in your practice?
Well, I think part of what I see is women believe that they're responsible for it all. They're like, this is my job to do all of these things. And so I have to figure it all out. by myself. And whatever I figure out, it has to be perfect according to others' ideas.
Yeah, so great segue. So that's like, why the hell are women doing this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so gosh, so many of these issues go back to the pressure of women to be perfect, to have everything together, and the pressure just from so many messages that women are the ones who are responsible to have a nice household and to have their kids look nice and to have everything together. And so a lot of the why in this, one of the pieces about why they're doing it, is because they feel that pressure, whether it's an internal pressure or an external pressure or both. And most of the time it's both.
Yeah, I think of, as you were talking, Brene Brown's concept that women end up feeling shame because the message has been, I'm supposed to be perfect, I'm supposed to do it all, I'm supposed to be able to work, take care of the kids, have the clean house, have the perfect party, do, blah, 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 do all these things and look like it's easy.
Yeah.
And if I can't do that, then there's something wrong with me and I have to be in shame. So I think that's another kind of why that goes along with this pressure, internal and external.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to bring something up. I'm wondering if there's a difference between women that work full time and women that are full time. I even hesitate to use housewives because even that feels like I'm
Homemaker.
choking on that homemaker.
Homemaker. Mm-hmm.
At home full
Domestic
time.
engineer.
Right. Domestic engineer.
Because I do hear in my practice, I do hear different things from the women that work. They're much more resentful.
Mm-hmm. But they're still doing it.
They are doing it. They do ask for help, but they're resentful because it's never equal. They still have to be the ones to constantly be advising their partner what needs to be done. It's like never like that the partner actually knows on his own that, I work late every Wednesday night. So my wife works late every Wednesday night. So I need to pick up dinner or I need to take care of dinner. Like that has to be reminded every week. Why is that? So they get very resentful about that.
Mm-hmm.
But the women that are full-time in the home with the kids, they're not as resentful about it. They're resentful about other things, but they seem to kind of like take that on as their contribution to the family if the husband is the one who brings in the money. So I'm curious what you two have experienced in your practices around that.
I see that as well. I see the women, though, who are not working, there's a lot of guilt with them. So they feel like I should do everything.
Yes.
I should bathe the kids, put the kids to bed. I should clean the house all the time. I should do the dishes. I should cook because I'm not working outside the home.
Right.
So they end up having a 24-hour, job, whereas their partners have, an 8 to 10 hour job, and they feel a lot of guilt. I also see a lot of guilt. It's almost like they want to earn their right to share their partner's money. And there's that money piece is a big, it's a big piece in here. It's power play in here. And the women who are working, it's interesting when they come home. I do see resentment that their partners aren't picking up the load as much. And I also see them over picking it up and not asking for help as much, or if they ask for help and their partners get mad at them asking for help or give them any problem with it, then they go internal and resentful and they don't keep fighting for it. They just pick it up and they're like, you know what, it's not worth it. And then it builds that resentment.
I hear that line a lot. It's not worth it. Why isn't it worth it? It's worth everything. It's worth everything.
Right. Right. They don't want to take on that fight.
I think about it just even in terms of the idea of date night, that generally the women feel like they're responsible for figuring out date night, and they're always responsible for getting the babysitter.
Yeah.
They have kids and stuff like that. And that's kind of just another sense of resentment. You know, it's kind of like, why doesn't he think about date night? Why isn't he getting the babysitter? And, you know, of course, we're talking about the 70% here, but.
Right.
Right.
Well, I think, and that's a great point. Like, so another reason why are the women doing it? Because if the women don't do it, often the men won't do it.
That's right.
So it's not like the men are all of a sudden going to pick up and say, hey, I'm going to find the babysitter and I'm going to call. They're just going to be like, they're going to, you know, more times than not go with it, and you're not having date night. Or if they don't do the Christmas shopping or the Hanukkah shopping, these kids might not have anything, or they're going to have something that the kids don't really want. That's the concern. I would say another reason why that this happens is because women have trained the men to not have to step up.
Yep.
Right? I mean,
Yep.
I remember when I first, you know, our first child, and I had no idea how the hell to pack a diaper bag. I didn't know how to do that, right? I was no more informed than my husband was, right? And so from day one, I was like, no. You got to go. Okay, you go take him. You have our son for the next 3 hours, and I'll have him when you get back. And we did tag team. And, you know, I was fortunate. My husband was okay. He learned just like I learned, you know, but I've seen too many women where they take on. And it's like, you've got to, from day one, be saying, no, I'm not taking that on. Right. We're married, and now we have to figure out a new division of labor. That doesn't, you don't come into my home and now I have to do everything for us. It's just like a whole, it's a whole shift that women have to do, I think, from the start.
Well, and I think in what you're saying, it's also, no, you have to learn how to do the diaper bag the same as I do. I think in a lot of places, though, we've already been trained how to. We've been trained how to do the dishes, how to have the party, how to, you know, so we have some basis of the how to, which I think sometimes makes us get a little on our high horse about this is the way to do it.
Right.
And if you didn't do it this way, then it's not okay.
Right.
And so I think there's an intolerance that women have about your way isn't okay and my way is, that also trains men to just not do anything.
To not do anything. Right. Yeah. So the women, they can't let go of how it's done. They want it their way. They can't accept that it may not get done. So they can't let the balls drop, because that's too anxiety provoking. And so they get themselves into this place where they're kind of stuck. And the only people who are able to do it are them. Or at least the only people who are able to do it the way they want it done are them. You know, I had a friend, and she would complain about her husband, and I'm like, why don't you just like, don't do it? Well, then it won't get done. I'm like, well, let it drop. She's like, oh, I couldn't live in a house like that. I just couldn't do it. I can't do it. And it was like, well, okay. Then you can't complain.
Pick which one. Yeah.
You gotta let it drop. It's not going to drop forever, but you got to let them feel, you know, some of the pain, you know? So, okay. So that's any other whys?
I think there is a thing about, we do have to recognize that men don't have a lot of these skills. They were not taught how to fill in the blank. And you know, I think there's a place of coaching a little bit, you know, like, I don't know what you know, this is how I'd like it, but now it's yours, you know, too.
So I'm going to challenge you a little bit on that.
Okay.
Men know how to, I mean, many men have lived on their own, right? Or they've, you know, I mean, they know how to do their laundry. They know how to cook. They've had to cook for themselves. Even in college, they've had to cook for themselves. Like, I think that they know more than many women think that they know.
Mm-hmm.
And then they may not know how to entertain and do a big, like throw a big party or something, but I know many women who don't know how to do that either, right? So I think that we have to be careful about assuming that they're inept and incompetent versus maybe they just don't want to and it's not a priority for them.
I think that's a possibility. I also think, though, that when you think about how they probably ate in high school, in college, and how they kept their apartment, it doesn't have anything to do with what I learned about doing that.
Right.
So it's not that they haven't done those things. I just think, like, what they've learned is to do this very, very minimum of it. And no one really said, this really isn't okay. You need to do this, which is, I do think, what we have gotten as women. You know.
Well, I think we have to look at who is the person in front of us. You know, like we're talking in generalizations, but I think depending on the person and having the awareness of what you can automatically easily fall into doing.
Yeah.
You know, based on your own history, and the role models that you've seen, how easy it is for you as the woman to fall into a stereotypical role and make assumptions about your partner in stereotypical ways as well.
Right. Okay, what's the cost of women doing all this? So you know, for Thanksgiving they set up the whole meal, and for, you know, they do all the holiday shopping, and they're running around and they set like the table and it looks beautiful and they have a nice, what's the cost of overdoing?
Well, to me, one of the big ones that hit me this morning thinking about this is just the idea of joy. You can feel accomplished that you did all those things, but you're exhausted, you're tired, you're stressed,
You're resentful.
Right? You're resentful. And so I did all these things, but it doesn't fill me up because I've let it run me rather than me run it.
Yes, I think if you're doing it out of a sense of obligation and automatic pilot, you're not gonna feel the satisfaction and the joy. You haven't come into it consciously and decide, I'm going to take this on, you're going to take that on, and you're going to take that on. Then I think you have a much better chance of really feeling fulfilled.
Right. Yeah, it's so different. If you're coming in, you're like, oh, I love the holiday season. I love decorating. I'm going to get my house together and I'm going to have people over and, oh, this is so much fun. You could do it all and you're going to love it. It's like all great. And that's fine. But if you're coming in and you're like, oh my God, if I have to do all of this shopping and then he's not going to help me at all, and what the hell, you're going to get resentful. It's going to be miserable, or maybe it's not going to be miserable, but you're going to it's not going to be a fun thing. Your family's going to feel it because typically if you're resentful, you got these short little things, short little statements that you're
snapping at everybody.
It's going to slip out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to ooze out. And then it's like the holiday season starts to become something that you dread rather than something that you're looking forward to. And just in general life, if you're doing that, it takes its toll because it's not healthy self-care. You've got to be able to do something out of your own choice because you're actively choosing, not because you don't, it's your duty and you feel like you don't have any other option to it.
I think the other thing that happens then is, so you're overstressed, you're overdoing, you keep saying, I got to do this, I got to do that. And then you're really not taking care of you. You're not stopping, you're not taking a break, you're not going for a walk, you're not eating well. You're like, there's all these kinds of things. And now it's going to impact your health.
Right.
You know, and I mean, I cannot believe the number of women who between Thanksgiving and Christmas end up with a cold, end up with the flu, end up with something because they've, you know, spun themselves out and they are exhausted.
They're so run down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it impacts the relationship
Mm-hmm.
because you're exhausted, you're annoyed, you're resentful, you're carrying everything on. You're not feeling the love from your partner because it feels like it's all one-sided. And
Mm-hmm.
it's going to start putting weeds in that foundation.
Mm-hmm.
It has to. And if you're not asking, then it's really on you. Like, it's one thing if you're asking and you have a partner who's like, no, 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 it's your job. You know, I hate this. But if you're not even asking, it's really, you know, you're to blame on that.
And you made the point before, Lisa, I don't want to forget because I thought it was so important, was that asking is part of self-care. And so many women who resent having to ask, as if asking takes away from what the person is willing to do once asked. And we have to really think about it differently.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not their job to read your mind. It's your job to speak your mind and their job to decide, can I give it or can I not?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I willing to, am I not willing to?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have a partner who, anytime you ask, hey, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? They do it. Be thankful. Be thankful. That's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want them to start carrying, like actually thinking of things or the planning of it, if they say yes to a lot of things you ask, chances are they'll be willing to do that, but you might have to work with them and help them to kind of put it in their head a little bit, you know?
Help them without resenting it.
Without resenting, right? Right. If they're open to learning, that's a gift.
Right.
Take it as a gift. Take it as a gift.
And that doesn't make them, it doesn't make you their mother.
Right.
Like
It
that,
makes you a good
that I
partner.
have to help you with this. Yes, just your partner. It's kind of the thing of, you know, my husband can fix like anything in the world. And so it's kind of like, and I can't. So if I wanted to fix something, I need him to tell me about it, and probably more than once. And I probably have to write it down and that sort of thing, you know, like I'm not just going to prove habit. That doesn't make him my father. It just makes him a helpful partner. You know?
Yeah.
And somebody who brings something into the relationship that I don't have. So it's a good partnership.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I think that is such an important point because we hear this all the time. I'm tired of being his mother. I feel like I have 4 kids and he's one of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is so important. It's not about being his mother. It's really about two human beings sharing their knowledge
Mm-hmm.
and learning from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about you as the female, you taking care of yourself and asking for your needs and wants. And if they're willing to give it, but they don't know how, say, okay, great. I'm happy to teach you. No problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's huge. Okay. What's the fix?
Well, I mean, I think.
Oh, remember what you said earlier?
What did I say?
Bob Newhart.
Oh, right. So this was so when we were first talking and Lisa said, so what's the fix? And I said, well, this is like Bob Newhart being the psychiatrist who the person comes in and says, this is my problem. And he goes, okay, are you ready? Stop it.
Just stop doing it.
Stop it. Yeah. So that would be the first thing.
All right. Sorry, I interrupted you, Dee. What were you going to say?
No, that's okay. Well, I think one of the things we talked about was this idea of really being able to determine what is important to me, not necessarily all these other people, but what's important to me. And so what am I going to say yes to and what am I going to say no to? I have
Without
to
resentment.
Without resentment. Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like if I feel like I can't say no, I am going to be pissed as hell, you know, and I don't mean to, but I'll take it out on the people around me.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one of the things is, well, first off, stop overdoing. And
Right.
the ways you're going to stop overdoing is pay attention to what you're resentful about. Do you really want to do this? Is this something that you're like, oh yeah, I'm doing this because I love this. This is going to be joyful. I'm excited. I'll take this on.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have resentment about it, take on as much as you'd like,
Right.
as long as you're happy and it's all you're choosing.
Mm-hmm.
And not paying it, don't make choices based on other people's thoughts about what you should do or how things should look, or everybody should do this in their homes, and on every Christmas or Hanukkah you should have this type of. Slow it down and get everybody else out of your head, right? And all those shoulds and pressures and needing to be perfect, take all that off the equation. So that's one of the things that they can do. Arlene, what do you think?
That's huge. That's huge. We already said ask for help, ask for what we need, delegate, be clear, renegotiate your contract with your partner, with your children as well.
What do you mean by renegotiate?
Well, if there's certain assumptions, if let's say you've been operating in a certain role for many years and all of a sudden you realize that it's costing you too much and you're building up resentment and it's interfering with your relationship, you have to bring it up. You have to say, I know we've been doing this for a long time, but I realize this is not working for me anymore. And I'm getting resentful and bitter, and I don't think it's good for our family, and I don't think it's good for our relationship. I think we need to rethink how we do these things. How we approach them, who does what. Yeah. And there may be some resistance to it, but I think it's really important to be very explicit about what you are willing to take on and what you're no longer willing to take on. Even if people expect it from you.
And this is a great time because we're heading into the holidays. So there's a lot that needs to be done that you could sit down, you can say, hey, listen, I want to do Thanksgiving different this year. Here's like 4 or 5 things that need to get done. How about, I would love it if you would take on this, or let's split this up. Who wants to cook the turkey? Who wants to get the grocery? Do we want to do it together? I know that the last 3 years I've been really resentful because I took it all on. I want this to be a different Thanksgiving or Christmas or Hanukkah. I want you to take our oldest child's presents. I'm going to take our youngest child's presents, or I'd like for us to shop together, or because of the pandemic, I want us to both sit online and do it together, or at least come up with let's talk about gifts that we want to do. Start partnering and start and come at it not from a complaining position, I hate how you did. Just come in and say, hey, I really want a new experience. I think this will be really fun. This is what I'd like. Are you open to it? But you got to be clear about what you're asking. Guilt-free ask. You always have a guilt-free ask. They can always say no, just like you can always say no. So there's nothing you can't ask for. And the other piece that you said, Arlene, that I think is so important, when you ask, first off, you have to ask for help. The second part of that is when you ask for help, you've got to let them help in their way. Take the control and the micromanaging out of it. Right? If you say, listen, can you, I don't know, can you
vacuum the floor?
Yeah, right. I mean, and if they go in circles instead of up and down, who cares? As long as it's done, you're good, right? So if you say, hey, can you come up with a side for Thanksgiving? And they come up with a side that you don't want for Thanksgiving, you can be like, look, whatever you want, it's good. I'm not, I'm letting go. So start practicing with that. Start playing with that.
I think one of the other things you were talking about is, sitting down and saying what you would like. And you were talking about with Grounded Powerful Strength, you're being collaborative. Right. This isn't about, so you do blah, blah, blah. So this isn't a demand. And so I think that's what's really important too about that, is that this is a collaboration.
I love
piece, and one other thing I think we need to do is, and I'll use myself, like I was talking to you guys about, recognizing internally what happens about why you think something has to be done. And so even this year, I was noticing the model for my grandmother is you do everything, like nobody should help. And I was getting really resentful about that. And so this year, I said to the kids, which, you know, adult kids, what things do you want to make? Here are the things, like you were talking about. And but it took me 2 weeks to send them the email to ask them, because internally it was sort of kind of, you know, I'd be like, okay, this is a simple thing, but you can't ask that. Oh my gosh. What? So I had to do that internal work simply to just say, pick things.
Well, you know what I love about that is, you know, listen, audience, who's ever watching this, Dee's a therapist. She's been a therapist for decades.
And I've been in therapy forever.
And so, and like the things that we're asking you to do, we know it's not easy. Like there's more often than not, it's the internal dialogue that you're fighting it more than you are the other people. It's more like, you know, oh my gosh, am I okay with letting this go? Am I okay with the table not looking absolutely perfect? Am I okay with actually asking, you know, my adult kids to chip in, or asking our friends to bring a dish, or let me slow that down. And that can be difficult. So, and it took Dee 2 weeks. It was difficult, but she still made herself do it. Right? Because it's in your best interest. It's also in the best interest of your families to do this. Resentment doesn't help anybody. As much as it's hard for you, it's also hard for everybody around you. So take the time, slow down. And part of what you're talking about also is boundaries. Some of this is boundary work, right? And self-esteem work. Like hold yourself in warm regard. Do your internal work. Don't allow the opinions of others to go right through you, where you start feeling less than, or you start feeling like I'm not enough. What's wrong with me? I'm like, you really got to hold your own and hold yourself in warm regard and be clear about what can I take on and what can't I? And I'm going to do the best I can. And I'm okay with things not being perfect because I have to be.
Well, I have to be if I want to bring joy back around these things,
Well,
you know, kind of thing. And, you know, and I even think of, you know, we were talking about we can ask. And quite frankly, if you think about it, when you have friends and family over, a lot of the time, I mean, not every family, but a lot of the time, somebody's saying, what could I do? And we're going,
right? Yes.
oh, nothing.
Right.
You know, instead of saying, here, make the potatoes.
Right. And hey, can I help you clean? Oh, no. You just sit back. Like,
right.
Sure, I would love it. Thanks.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. I see many women do during holidays. You hardly see them.
Right.
They're like making the food, they're up and down at the table, they're cleaning, everybody's out having fun and they're cleaning. That is not joyous at all. Really, I would talk to your partner, either let it be until your company leaves and then you can do it later, or you say to your partner, look, I'm going to clean, I'm going to cook some of this and you need to clean, or we both are going to cook half and we're both going to clean half, or the kids are going to come and they're going to clean. Divvy that up, because really when you invite people over, they want to talk to you. They want to know you. They don't want to, like, then they start feeling guilty because you're always cleaning and doing all that. Really try to figure out a way where you can enjoy it. You are not just putting on these holidays for others. These holidays are for you. So enjoy it with them.
And notice the pull to do it the old way, and know that it's going to take some effort and mindfulness to shift and to do all the things that you just mentioned.
Yeah. And if you are renegotiating with your partner, and if you're asking your partner to help and they're showing up, catch them being good. Catch them being good. Too often couples complain all the time about what they don't like about each other, but they don't catch each other being good. So say, hey, honey, thanks so much for cleaning up all the plates. I so appreciate that. Or, hey, thanks for doing the shop. You did a great job. Instead of, I had 25 things on the list, and one of the things you got wrong.
Right.
Don't do that. Just be like, hey, this is great, And so really appreciate it. And if they did get the wrong thing, you can say, hey, did you get this or that? Whatever. And they're like, oh, I got that. And you're like, oh, shoot. Hey, can you get this started? I'm going to run back. Thank you so much for doing the shop. I so appreciate it. This one thing I got to run to the store and get it. And so you can go back to the store if they just came to the store and ask them to do this. Or you could say, oh, honey, thank you so much. Would you mind going back and just getting this one thing? But be kind and catch each other being good. All right. Anything else on the how-tos before we get to our challenges?
Oh, one of the things we talked about, we've talked about this a little bit, but the idea of, again, sitting down and talking about, this is what I would like this to look like. What do you want it to look like? And then figuring out what the plan is, but that's the kind of thing, rather than, well, this is how I want it to look. Yeah. So nobody gets any input, our partner gets no input, the kids get no input. It's kind of like, this is how I would like it to look. What do you guys want? Kind of thing. So I think that's important.
Before even that, I think you may need to have a preliminary conversation and say, I really would like to plan this holiday together. So I want you to think about how you do it. Because very often, if you just go into it, they go, I don't know, just do whatever you want. And that's it. So I think you have to kind of set it up as something we're going to do together. I'm not in charge. We're going to be talking about how we both want it.
As we're talking, I'm very aware that there are women who are listening and they are like, you guys are so clueless. My husband would never listen to any of this. And so to those women, I want you to notice two things. First off, if you are with somebody that is going to fight you tooth and nail about everything and they dismiss you and you can't sit down and have a conversation with them because they're going to tell you how they work all the time and it's their job and your job is this, and they're going to come in harsh. I want you to recognize that you are in a really difficult marriage. And if that person is going to, butt up against you all the time, get help. The other thing I want you to realize is in healthy marriages, these conversations can happen all the time. And so I want you to have a glimmer of what a healthy conversation is. Hey, honey, I want us to talk about a new way for our holiday. And your partner's like, okay, what are you thinking? Right? And a healthy marriage would be like, you know what? I've been really reading a lot of books and listening to different podcasts, and I've been kind of tuning into me and watching the world around me. And more I'm aware that I don't like how we have divvied up stuff in our relationship. And I don't like how I just keep taking things on. And I want to make changes. And your partner's going to be like, oh, interesting. So tell me what you're thinking. Right? Like healthy marriage, there's a lot of back and forth. And your partner can come to you and say, hey, I just want you to know you asked me for help. But then when you ask me for help, you don't like how I do it. And I don't like that. And a healthy response to that would be like, oh, wow, I didn't even recognize that. I'm really sorry that I'm doing that. And thanks, honey, for actually bringing that to my attention. Absolutely. That's what healthy marriages look like. It's a healthy back and forth, both ways. You're not the only complainer. You're not the only one who's unhappy. You're not the only one who gets to ask. So do they. And you've got to meet them exactly how you want them to meet you. So I am aware, as we're talking about that, there's going to be many women who are like, no way, my husband would never do that. And first and foremost, I want you to note that. If you're thinking that it's not that we're crazy, we don't know what we're talking about, it's just you're in a really tough marriage, and go back to listen to our podcast on limit setting, because you got to start setting limits and ramping them up, and you're going to have to get into couples treatment. So
and if not couples treatment, your own treatment first.
If not couples treatment, your own. Yeah, right. Because yes, if he says no, he's not going to do it. And if you get into couples treatment, you better make sure that you're with a therapist or a coach who is able to take him on. You cannot be going into couples work with somebody who's going to be 50-50. And so what did you think? And what did you think? You have to be in with somebody, a professional who is able to absolutely call the person out on their bad behavior. And they're not going to try to be fair. And there are many couples therapists who cannot do that. So don't waste your time. Okay, that was just a caveat. I'm just like sitting, I had this voice in the back of my head of these women like, wait, this,
Yes, it's true.
Okay, so challenge. Who wants to take on the challenge for women?
I'll do the challenge for women.
Okay.
So what we would like you to do is to really pay attention as you're going into this holiday season and look at, oh, if I do that, am I doing that out of a sense of duty? Or am I doing that out of a sense of, oh, I want to enjoy, like Lisa was talking about before? So the first thing is noticing, like, am I like, I have to? Or it's like, oh, I can't wait, kind of thing. For the ones where you're kind of like, oh, I have to, it's this duty, it's like, choose a couple of those and delegate it, like in these ways that we've been talking about to somebody. And if you find that you're like, oh my God, I can't do that, just notice how hard it is. And that's where that personal piece I was talking about before, about why is that so hard for me to do that piece.
Love that. Great. Arlene, you want to talk about the challenge for men?
Sure. First and foremost, notice the gender inequality. Just start to really see, because you probably have never noticed it. And then you can ask, what can I do to help?
Yeah. And the gender equality, particularly around the holidays and the division of labor around cleaning and cooking and whatever, but also outside the holidays in your home. What's that gender inequality and the division of labor happening, and why? Like that, yeah, love that.
And also notice if you think that because you are working, that somehow entitles you to a get out of housekeeping free card.
Love that.
That stuff has to be done no matter what. And it's your home too. It's your family.
Yeah, that's the equivalent of, if you feel like you're working so you shouldn't have to do any of that, that means her job is 24 hours a day and yours is 10 to 12. That's not a fair distribution, right?
That affects your relationship, and it'll affect how your partner will feel towards you, and it'll affect everything.
Oh, that's funny. So that statistics were 3 out of 10 have equitable relationships in their home. And what they found was the 3 out of 10 who had equitable relationships had reported having more satisfying sex lives.
That's your reward. So there's your reward.
So keep that in mind.
You want a better sex life? Start vacuuming, right?
First ask if that's what you should be doing.
Yeah.
What you want help, right?
Yes, that's funny. As usual, everybody, if you like this, please pass it on to friends. Give us a thumbs up, give us a like. If there's any information that you are curious about or you have a question about, please put it in the comments section and we will do our best to help you out. All right. Until then, have a very, very wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and everything in between. Everybody enjoy your Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you in 3 weeks.
Yeah, take care and stay safe.
Thank you again for joining us this week. And always remember, you have the power to change the world for women by changing how you walk in it. I challenge you to choose one way to stand in your grounded, powerful strength this week and be part of the ripple of change.